Oh, hi, this is Mike. I'm ready to start recording. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Seems like it's been forever since I've had this class. I was out last Wednesday, and Monday was a holiday, so it's been a little over a week, actually. So it would probably be good for us to go back and talk about some things and sort of extend what we've done before. Not necessarily really new topics or brand new topics, but maybe a new slant on some topics and maybe some insight on stuff that you wouldn't have thought of before. So that's what we're going to do today. And that goes along the lines of your next couple of labs 3 and 4. I think I made lab 3 available. I don't think I made lab 4 available yet. But there's really nothing brand new in those. It's largely just taking and trying to do a little bit more with the stuff that we've already had. So with that in mind, it seems like a good time to sort of take a step back and maybe review some stuff. Let's make a page about local colleges. Okay? So let's say our job is to write a web page, create a web page about Ohio colleges. All right? One thing I would suggest, first of all, anytime you have a task like this, is to take a minute and plan it. Think about how you want it to look. All right? At this point, we don't know a lot about laying out our web page. We really only know a very straightforward way to lay out our web page, one thing after another. As time goes on, we're going to learn more and more about controlling the layout. So this phase will become even more critical. But I think it's important right from the start to think about what you want to present. Remember, there's always two aspects of web design. Or web development. There's a technical aspect of how to do the different things, but as important is the design aspect, how to lay out the page and how to create the page in a way that's going to sort of maximize the communication and allow people to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. So, if I was going to sketch this page out, I might make it look something like this. I'm going to draw it first, and then we can talk about maybe what tags that would have. Ohio colleges. All right. And I might have links to college websites. And then I might have a list of links, one to Loring Community, one to Cleveland State, and one to Oberlin, let's say. Then I might have, summary of colleges, maybe. And then I might have LCCC, and then a paragraph about LC. CSU, then a paragraph about CSU, finally Oberlin, and then a paragraph about that. Now, you might say, or you might wonder, I have the links at the top of the page. Is that the best place for the links? Well, maybe, maybe not. One nice thing, though, is you can always put the links in a couple places. So, for example, I could have the list of links at the top of the page for convenient use so people can see a list of all the colleges I'm going to talk about. I could then have incorporated in the body of the text another link. There's no rule that says you only have to link once to a given page, right? So you could put the link in both places. That's one of the nice things about web development is you have options to present the same material a couple different ways or in a couple different places. And that way, people that want to look at it this way can see it this way. People that want to look at it that way can see it that way. All right? So this is a rough sketch of what I want my page to look like. I probably will at some point do things such as adding images to this. All right, but we'll see how far we get on this basic design before we go in and add images. We'll also go in and we will create an external style sheet. All right. We're going to grow this example so that we have sort of a page with overviews and then a page devoted to each of the particular colleges. All right. So we want all those pages to have a very similar look and feel, so therefore we're going to create an external style sheet. All right. We'll add some images. We'll play around with the color. That's, pretty much what we're going to do with this example. All right. What tags do you think we're going to need to use here? Someone shout out something on the page and a tag that we would need to use for. Pardon me? Yeah. These links here are going to be an unordered list. And they're going to consist of ULs and LIs. A UL is an unordered list. In other words, the order doesn't really matter. This isn't like a ranking of the colleges, or the football poll for September 1st, who's the top rank or whatever. So there's no ranking involved. So therefore, it's considered to be an unordered list. It's pretty well just in an arbitrary order. What's something else on this page and something that would have a tag for? Yeah, this would probably be an H1 because it's sort of the top level header. It's the main idea of this page. This is a page about Ohio colleges. Each of these then would likely be H2s because if you think of them, these are like second level headings. If I was making an outline, the top level would be Ohio colleges. Underneath that, it would be links to Ohio colleges. And then on the same level as the links would be a summary. All right. One thing a lot of students get confused about is they think the first heading should be an H1 and the second heading an H2 and the third heading an H3 and so on. It's not the sequence of it. It's not H1, H2, H3. It's the level of the heading that it is. So in other words, the top level heading is an H1. The second level heading, even if there's 2 or 3 second level headings, think of it like you're making an outline. Those will all be H2s. And then if there's anything underneath the H2s, they'll be H3s and so on. Now, one thing I've also seen students do is they'll go right from, let's say, this should be an H3. They'll make it an H4. Why do you suppose they'll make it an H4 instead of an H3? Yeah, they want the font smaller than the H3. And at this stage of the game, I can understand that. However, understand that going forward, we'll be reviewing ways that you can make those H2s and H3s and H1s look any way that you want to. All right? So don't make it an H4 just because you want it to look like an H4. You should give it the tag that it really actually represents, and through CSS, we can make that tag look the way that you want it to. All right? There's going to be some links involved here. And there's going to be some paragraphs involved here. And so on. And that's about a pretty good summary of that. My point in this is sketch out what you're going to do first. All right? A lot of students want to simply jump in and code. And that ultimately won't be terribly effective. Good websites, well-designed websites don't happen by accident. They happen as a result of a very deliberate process of deciding what to put on the page, how to have the page structured, and so on. So for anything, take a minute to think about it before you jump in. All right, look before you leap. Measure twice, cut once. Don't do ready, shoot, aim. We could repeat the cliches for the rest of the morning. The idea is plan before you go and do something. So let's go in and let's start to create this page. So our goal will be to create the page that looks like that initially, and then we'll add on to it a separate page for each of the colleges, or maybe we'll just do one of the colleges. We don't have to do all of them. Once we do one, we'll see how that works. All right. So let's go in and let's start putting some of those tags in here. I started out with the shell of the HTML, the head, the body, and the end HTML. Notice again the indentation is for readability. All right. When I come back to this example Monday, I might forget exactly what I did, whereas if I have it indented correctly, it'll be very easy for me to see the code I had. The head tag at least needs a title. I'm going to change it from Ohio to local colleges. All right. Any tag that you want to appear on the page itself ought to be in the body tag. I've seen a lot of people put like H1s or links or something up in the head, and that's not correct. That's not a proper usage of the tag. They should all be, other than the title and a few other things that we'll talk about, everything should be in the body of it. So we'll put our H1 here, and we'll say Ohio colleges or local colleges. We have a UL. Notice as what I'm doing is as soon as I put in the starting tag, I put in the ending tag, just so I don't forget. That's just sort of a good practice. I have had some students ask me about using editors other than Notepad. Like some students like to use Notepad++, and that's fine. You can download that for free. There's also a nice editor called the Komodo editor, which works across platforms. That is one that I use a lot on my own machines. I picked Notepad because most people are on a Windows machine, and every Windows machine has it. So if you don't want to download anything special, it's there. What I don't want to do, and what I deliberately do not do in this class, is use a graphical editor such as Dreamweaver or anything like that, because I don't believe that the use of that doesn't teach you how to write good HTML. You end up writing bad HTML if you use one of those graphical ones, unless you're very, very careful and already know how to write proper HTML. So we're going to start just very basically using a plain old text editor. A UL tag, again, is an unordered list, and it's a list of things. It can be anything, and in this case, we're going to make it a list of links. On many people's assignments, I didn't take points off for it, but the thing that it got to the point where I just copied it once and I just pasted it a bunch of times because a lot of people were making a similar, I won't say mistake, but we're doing a similar thing, is if you notice in a link, the link is the A tag, the href attribute says what the name of the web page is. Between the start and end A tag is the text that the user is going to click on for the link. That should be something that's descriptive. All right? In the first assignment, a lot of students put click here as the text. That's not very descriptive. All right? So other students put like resource 1. That's also not very descriptive. All right? And some students just copied the URL there. So, in other words, instead of that, they just duplicated the address. And that's also not particularly good. Pay attention to the text that you use for the links. It really helps make the page more usable. Later on, we'll talk about accessibility considerations. And regardless of whether you're talking about for people with disabilities or people that do not have any particular specific disability, it's better to have descriptive text for the links. I suppose that's one advantage modern teachers have over old school teachers, you know, we don't have to write the same thing over and over again. If there's a common problem, we can just copy and paste. All right. We then can have, what do we say in our outline? Summary. I'm going to do something here that graphic designers often do, just as a placeholder. In other words, I don't want to sit here and make up a paragraph about Learning Community College, right? And I'll be sitting here for the next 10 minutes trying to think exactly how to word it and correcting my spelling and all that. I'm going to use something instead that's called Greek text. All right? Greek text is not actually Greek. All right? It sort of looks like it's Greek or Latin. But it's something that graphic designers use sort of as a placeholder. So let's say I was brought in for an organization to create a website like this, create a web page. I might want to give them an idea of what the page is going to look like, but I don't necessarily have all the content yet. In other words, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say about Learning Community College, but I know that I want the page structured this certain way. All right? What you can do is you can go and you can find it online. Just do a Google search for Greek text. And then you can just paste it in, and it serves just as like a placeholder. So I can ask for one paragraph of Greek text. And I can copy it in here. In my paragraph. And put the ending tag. I'm then going to do what I stated before and copy the link. Then I could do the same for the other two colleges. And in that way, without having to worry about having the exact text, I can come up with a design pretty quickly that looks like I want it to. Some people don't like Greek text. They say it's confusing, that someone looks at this and is like, what? You know, what are you trying to say here? But I think if you explain it to a client or someone that you're creating a web page for, that, hey, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say here, so I'm just putting this in as a placeholder to show you how the page is going to look like, I think most people would understand that. Again, what we're doing now is sort of creating a prototype. What is a prototype? A prototype is sort of an unfinished version of your pages. And it's a key step in creating a website. Oftentimes, again, you're creating a website for someone else, right? In other words, maybe you work for an organization that needs a website developed, or maybe you work for a consulting company, or you're a freelancer, and an organization brings you in to develop a website for them. Well, You can talk about all you want, sketches, and you can show people sketches. Where they'll really understand your ideas is when you actually make sort of a working model. And that's what a prototype is. A prototype doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to have everything that the finished version has, but it should have enough so that a person can look at it, the person you're developing the website for can look at it and say, yeah, that looks pretty good, or no, that doesn't look pretty good. All right, let's save this and view it. And there we have. Test the links, make sure they work. That one does. And so on. So we've created a page that sort of looks how I intended it to look. Are there any questions about this, what I have here? Yes? That's a good question. Actually, it's probably a little confusing because it's both. All right. I have local colleges as the title and local colleges as the H1. The H1 is what appears in the body of the page.
Okay, the title is just what's on the bar.
Title's what's on the bar. Let me make them different to make it obvious. Local colleges. I'll put the word homepage on that one. That way we'll see the difference. So the title up there now says local colleges homepage, where the H1 still says just local colleges. All right. So functionally, we have pretty much what we want. We'd have to go in and write our actual paragraph to complete this. But it looks a little bland. The appearance of it can be improved. And again, we are concerned about the appearance for a couple reasons. First of all, we can use things like color and so on to highlight information and to make certain information stand out. All right. We can also use it to make it just simply look more pleasing than that. Keep in mind that anything that deals with the appearance of the page, we want to address through cascading style sheets. All right? That will give us the ultimate flexibility in changing the way that it looks and changing the way it's laid out. All right? So while you may know from past experience things such as the font tag or attributes on HTML to give a certain color or whatever, we're going to not use those. We're instead going to use the CSS option. All right? I'm first going to build the CSS inside this page. I'm then going to go and I'm going to pull the CSS out into its own file. All right? Why do I pull the CSS out into its own file? What's the value of that? Yeah, so I can share it with other pages. In other words, I can write one CSS file for all my pages on my website. And then, all right, if I change in one place, it will change it for all my pages. So if I decide I want my color scheme to be gray and black, all right, and all my pages, and I've set the colors to be gray and black. If I later decide, no, I want it to be blue and white, I can change in one place, and every page on the site will get that change. All right, so let's go in and let's play with the CSS. CSS is an example of another thing that goes into the head section. I'm going to write a CSS command and someone tell me what it's going to do. What will that CSS rule do? Okay. 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 Right. We're first of all, the way to understand these rules is to, the stuff that's before the curly brackets, the braces, is what's called the selector. All right? That's the thing on the page that's going to get this rule. So in this case, the selector is the body tag. So the body tag is really everything on the whole page. All right? So everything within the body is going to get this rule. Now, the background #CCCCC, remember from a few classes ago we talked about you can put the name of very common colors in there. You can put white, black, blue, gray, green, and I showed a whole list of them. I also mentioned that you can use this kind of code, which is called a hex code or hexadecimal. Let's briefly explain how that works. And the good news is if you don't get how it works, you can still use them. You just have to look it up on the chart. And there's a lot of charts available. But I think it's important that you at least have an idea of how these hex codes work. Yeah?
For our assignment, this lab 2, did you want us to use hex codes? Or did you want us
I don't think I specified, so I don't think it matters. Yeah, if I don't really say you have to do it this way, then you can do it any way that you want. All right. The question was, did we need to use hex codes for Lab 2? And the answer is, probably not. All right. Imagine we're in a dark room. All right. And imagine we have 3 spotlights in that dark room. We have a red spotlight, a green spotlight, and a blue spotlight. And we have actually 256 positions for each of those spotlights. But it doesn't really matter right now how many positions we have. In other words, it's not on or off. It's one of those ones that's like it's on a dimmer. So we can turn it all the way on, halfway on, all the way off. And those 3 spotlights are all focused on a circle on the screen, on the blank screen. If we turn the red spotlight on all the way, and we have the blue and the green off, what color is the light on the screen going to be? Well, it's going to be red, right? Because we have red turned up all the way, and there's no blue and green. If we had red and blue turned up all the way, what color would we get on the screen? We'd get some shade of purple. All right? If we turned the red down a little bit, we'd get a more bluish shade of purple. If we turned the blue down, we'd get a more reddish shade of purple. If we turned both of them down, we'd get a darker shade of purple. If we turned both of them up, we'd get a lighter shade of purple. All right? These hex codes are like those lamps. The pound sign indicates we're using a hex code. You then have 3 pairs of digits. FF means all the way up. 00 means all the way off. So, FF0000 is red. All right, because the red's turned all the way on, the green is turned off, and the blue is off. If I did something like this, that'd be a darker shade of red. Why? Because the numbers go, the digits go 0 through 9, just like in regular numbers, and then A through F. So A is a lower number than F is. 9 is a lower number than A, and so on. So AA0000 would be still a shade of red, but it'll be a darker shade of red because we've turned the red dial down a little bit. If we were to go and add some blue into it, we'd get some shade of purple. And this would be a redder shade of purple, right? Because we kept the red all the way up and we turned the blue down. All of them off is going to be what color? It's going to be black. All the lights are off. All of them off are going to be black. If all of them are on, then we get white. So, what do you suppose pound sign CCCCCC is? Yeah, it's a shade of gray. It's actually a lighter shade of gray because C is sort of a higher digit. All right? So, enough yapping about this. Let's look at this. Oh, what is color FF0000? That would be red. All right? So let's look at this page. All right? Notice that the background is now gray and the text is red. Let's play around with these for a second. Let's go and make this lower numbers. In other words, C is a higher digit. Let's make 6 nines, and let's make this 9 9. Notice it's darker. The red's darker and the gray's darker. If we go and do something like this, that's going to be white. And then if we do FF00FF, that's going to be a shade of purple. If we turn down the red and keep the blue full blast, we get a bluer shade of purple, and so on. The good news is if this is confusing to you, all right, all you have to do is find a color chart. There's any number of color charts on the web that sort of works like a color chart in a paint store, right? You say, yeah, this is the one I want, and it shows you the hex code for it. All right? So let's go back to what we had before, only I'm going to make the text blue instead of red. Let's make it a little bit darker blue. How would I do that? Well, I'd turn these down a little bit. Okay. Well, we can live with that. Notice that the style rule doesn't apply to links. All right, the body style rule took care of everything, but it didn't take care of the links. Everything on your page can get its appearance from one of two ways. Either your CSS rules or the browser default. So for anything on the page, if you want to know why does it look that way, it's a combination of those two things. In this case, the reason the body's gray and the text on the page is blue is because of our style rule. Why are these links a lighter shade of blue and underlined and so on? Well, that's because of the browser default. All right, let's make another page. Let's make a more detailed page about Lorain County Community College and link to it from this one. So I'll close this guy. I'm going to rename this one Colleges. I'm going to copy this as a starting point and paste it and rename it to LCCC. I'm going to change the title. I'm going to make this page only about Lorain County Community College. And I'm going to add on here a link to the home page. By home page, I mean my colleges page. Now, this is going to be a link to another page that I've made. So the rule for linking to that is going to be a little bit different than a link to an external site. All right? We see to link to an external site, you need http:// and then the address of the website that you want to link to. To link to another page that I've created, provided it's in the same folder, all you need to do is supply the name of the page. So, if I want to go to the page colleges here, I just need to put colleges.html. I'm then going to change this page to also link to my page. And again, since they're in the same folder, I don't need the HTTP or anything like that. I just need the or the name of the page. All right. So now I have this, and I can link to my page, and then I can link back home. All right. Now, what if I decide I don't like that gray? I think it's still a little too dark. I want to make it lighter still. Well, E would be lighter. So I could change that. So now that page is lighter, but that page isn't. Why? Because I had a copy of the style page in two places. The style code is in the colleges page. The style code is also in the LC page. And therefore, if I wanted to change the color, I'd have to go in and change it on every single page. Well, in this example, I have two pages. That's still too much work, right? I shouldn't have to go and duplicate the change I made in one place and someplace else. I should be able to change it once and have it take effect for the entire site. That would be my goal anyhow. There's a slogan in software development, DRY. Do not repeat yourself. All right? So any code that's repeated sort of should be a red flag to you as a web developer or a software developer. And you should at least ask yourself, is there a way I can put this in one place where I don't have to change it every time I want to change it in multiple places every time I want to change something about that? Now, in the case of style sheets, there is a way to do that. What we can do is we can create what's called an external CSS file. The way we do that is we don't include the style tag, but we cut or copy out the style code in here. I'll make another file. I'll paste the style code into there, and I'll save it with a name. And I'll save it with a name that ends in .css. That tells me it's cascading style sheet. So I'll call this page style.css, or rather this file, style.css. And I'll save it. Okay. So now I have, in addition to my 2 pages, I have style.css. All right? What I need to do now is I need to go back and change those 2 pages to point to this file. In other words, I don't want the code in these files anymore. I simply want the code, the HTML code, to point to that external file. How do I do that? Like this. I get rid of the style code in here. And again, I put the name of the style sheet as part of the href. I can take this code and I can copy it into my other page, the LC page. Now, it doesn't matter if I have 2 pages or 100 pages, they all get that style rule. So I can go back and forth between the 2 pages. If I go and change that one CSS file, maybe they have a background color of red, let's say. Then, if I view both pages, it gets the new color. So that page gets it, and that page gets it. So we're able then to, by simply changing the one style sheet file, change all the pages on our site. Now, in this example, I only did 2 pages, all right, which is still nice. Cut down my work in half, right, anytime I want to make a change. But if you can imagine on a larger site where there are dozens of pages, that really constitutes a significant savings to be able to do that. All right. Let's set it back to maybe something that looks a little more reasonable. Let's do a shade of gray and go on from there. Yes?
What did you end the link type with?
Let's take a look at that. Link, then a space, type equals text / CSS, rel equals style sheet, href equals style.css. Style.css is the name of the file that I created. And then I have a / greater than sign. All right?
And then you have to have this line in all of the pages.
In all of the pages, right.
And then the external style sheet that you make with the one color that you want will have it working on all.
Exactly. Exactly. And not just the one color, but anything I change in that style sheet.
Always goes in the header.
Correct. But we can do a lot more with style sheets than just change the color. We look at the colors first because those are the most obvious things that we can change. But, for example, we can change the font family as a second example. So let's go in and change the font family. Font-family, Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, I don't expect you to follow exactly what I did there. But again, it's the name of the attribute you want to change, a colon, and then the values. So if I change that then, notice that the font changed. and it changed on both pages. So it's a really good way to keep things consistent. All right. One of your goals as a web designer is to make your pages, make your site have a consistent look and feel. You don't want to make your site look like just a random collection of pages. You want it to sort of have a unified look. And by using CSS, you can do that. Now, how did I know that I could change the font family? Well, in theory, I knew I could change the font family because I know that anything I want to change relating to the appearance, I can change via CSS. Specifically, how to do that, that's one of those things that will come with time. As the course progresses, we'll go over more and more and more examples. If you want to experiment with something that we haven't covered in class, you're encouraged to do so. Where do you find these attributes? Well, our good friends at W3 Schools. If we go and visit CSS, we can look at all of the things that we can style. We can style the fonts, lists, tables, and so on. And if we look under styling the fonts, it explains how to do that. So font family, in this case, Times New Roman, Times Serif. We'll examine the details of what that means later on, but that's what we can do to control the font family. Now, we can also go in and change other things on this page. For example, we could give H1s a different look. Let's just change the color of the H1s. Maybe we'll change them to be a darker gray and a lighter blue. So I'll make this AA. So that's a lighter gray. No, that's a darker gray. Yeah, that's what I said, a darker gray and a lighter blue. I got two of these curly brackets. All right, so now the H1s are a darker gray and a lighter blue than the ordinary text. And if we go to the other page, it has that as well. So notice how just by a couple little tricks, we're getting a pretty easy, a pretty nice, consistent look on these. And as we learn to do more and more with CSS, you'll be able to control the appearance of the page even more. So don't hesitate to experiment. You're welcome to do more than is asked for in the lab. Questions about this? Yes?
Oh, do we need to do an external style sheet for our Lab 2 project?
For one of them you do, yeah. I think it's Lab 2. It's either Lab 2 or 3.
Now, with that, you know how we link to our first web
Mm-hmm.
assignment? Is it supposed to change that as well?
You should go back and change your Lab 1 to also use the same external style sheet. Right. Don't be confused by the fact that that the word link is used two different ways. There's a link between web pages where you click on something and you go to another web page. Then there's a link to the style sheet where you're kind of pointing and say, hey, use that style sheet.
You just want to create a new folder with an external style.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be in a different folder. You could keep everything in the same folder, but a new file, right. Question in the back. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I always use Google Chrome.
Uh-huh.
It was not displaying my different text color.
Right.
And it was driving me nuts because I'm looking at my code.
Uh-huh.
It's white.
Right.
And so when I opened it in Explorer,
Mhm.
it's white perfect.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make the statement that if I'm frustrated with something that seems like it's working, open it in another browser. Sometimes there's an issue with your browser.
Yeah. We'll talk more about browser compatibility. The student mentioned that he had a browser compatibility issue between viewing a page in Google Chrome versus viewing it in Internet Explorer. We'll review browser compatibility issues. There's things that you can do to reduce the risk of them, to limit them. That being said, the people that make browsers are imperfect just as we are imperfect, and therefore sometimes they make mistakes. If you run into a situation where your page looks different in one browser versus another, and you can't really seem to figure out what's going on, feel free to either contact me in lab or email me, and I'll be glad to give you a hand. Yes?
When we have to send in our homework assignment, we obviously have to either attach the external style sheet and the
Uh-huh.
document. We just attach them together or something? I tried to send it to somebody and it didn't work. They couldn't open it the same way that I did it in my style sheet.
Okay. To send the files when you're done, probably the easiest thing to do is to make sure everything is in one folder. So let's pretend this is the assignment, and I'll make a new folder. Make sure everything is in the one folder. All right. Then just right mouse on the folder, say send to compressed file. All right. And then attach that file. Now, a word of caution. If you go into this compressed file, it will look like your style sheet doesn't work. All right? Because you can't view individual files within a compressed folder. You have to first extract the files to a new folder, and then you can view them. So that's what I do when I go and download them, is I go and extract them first. So sometimes that throws students because they think that something isn't working after they compress it. Actually, a compressed file is really 3 or 4 files jammed into one. So again, it won't necessarily work with links until you expand it. All right. We'll see you over in lab then.
I already finished my webpage.
Mm-hmm.